Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We get to make one of these videos where I assess popular culture again. I'm not talking about any trends or whatever right now. I'm talking about behavior, popular behavior. Um and yeah, so I guess I want to start this off with I don't really talk about anything philosophical. Everything is a philosophy in its own right. So if you enjoy something that's a philosophy, you enjoy the philosophies of something. If you are intrigued by the aesthetics of art, you are intrigued by the philosophy of, maybe color theory or liminality or whatever words you want to use. There's a bunch of different words, there's a bunch of different terminologies. Everything has its own jargon, as my French professor would put it. But yeah, I, I don't talk about philosophy. I don't talk about philosophy, capital P, if you will. I do not talk about the broad concept of philosophy on my channel because I have really boring, lukewarm takes. I'm not a religious person, but I think there is value. I think value is largely manufactured. I think value is a survival mechanism. I think value takes a lot of different shapes. I think it takes a lot of different. I think it manifests itself in a lot of different ways. I think a lot of our goals and our aspirations are largely artificial, but they bring us happiness, so they're not really in the same right. There's a lot of gray area, there's a lot of flexibility. These aren't remarkable, brilliant, or new ideas, right? People talk about this sort of stuff, and there are people that are way better at it. I'm not one of those people. I don't care to be one of those people. Real philosophers, people that are really good at thinking about things in abstract terms and putting together really comprehensive ideas about what it means to think or what it means to, care about something, or a lot of the, you know, nullifying the subjectivity and turning that subjectivity into objective interpretations of cognition. Those are people that are really good at what they do, and I have tremendous amounts of respect for that. However, I do hold some philosophical ideas because I have to, because any person that thinks and is capable of having that objectivity, subjectivity, they have to have philosophical, undertones to everything, right? I have morality. Morality is objectively philosophical, right? I shouldn't kill someone. Now, granted, like killing someone or, not doing something antisocial, the correct use of the word antisocial there. Um, a lot of those things are they're naturally motivated within me. Like, I'm a big naturalist in a lot of ways. Like, I think that things should be done for the good of species as a whole, so we can prolong the existence of life on our planet, because life is very unique within our immediate area, or so we know it to be. Like, we are the only planet in our solar system with a currently living species. So, and we have a plethora of species, and we should try to prolong that. That's really baseline, basic naturalism. Of course, I have my own lens that I see that through, where it's like I look at, I look at the fossil record because I'm really intrigued by geology. I'm not a trained, well, I kind of am a trained geologist. I'm kind of not. I'm not seeking a baccalaureate or a master's degree in geology, but I've taken geological courses. I've educated myself in a lot of realms. I'm greatly fascinated with fossils, things like that, but I'm not trained. But I do have that sort of insight where I've seen a lot of, the fossil record, and I've interpreted how cells have evolved, and how organisms have evolved, and how the earth has changed over time. And I think I conceptualize naturalism through that guise of 4 billion years or so. And to me, that's really important. It's not important because I have it as an idea, but it's important because I value life. And that's one of those things where subjectivity is really out there, where it's like, what does life really mean? How important is life? Of course, there's a scholarly definition of life, but all solar systems, if they have a sun, they're kind of alive in some sort of uh, some sort of definition to where they are active. The sun is actively performing nuclear fission or a nuclear fusion, and yeah, so these systems with binary, trinary stars or singular stars, and they have terrestrial objects circling them or gaseous planets circling them. These are all alive in their own sort of way. I think you can see the parallels between an atom and a solar system in the same right. But yeah, you're going to find monasteries, you're going to find statues, you're going to find symbols wherein you look at them. Like, I look at everything through a guise of language, right? And I mean, a solar system is like a word where, wait, I gotta think about this metaphor or simile, right? I gotta think about this simile where a solar system is like a word in that it has this crux, right? The nucleus of the syllable, right, or the word or the sound. It has this nucleus, and then it dies off. It has the onset, and then it has the tail. But the nucleus, we are at the nucleus of the life of our solar system right now, I would say, right? Or at least we are at the nucleus of activity that we perceive, right? It's kind of a really weird thing to think about, and it's subjective, and there's all these different places you can put them in, right? And this is part of the reason I don't talk about philosophy, right? But the reason I bring any of this up at all is because people are experts. Everyone is an expert on everything right now, and it is extremely frustrating because I'm being extremely facetious when I say this, that people are experts on everything. But everyone just seems to, on the internet sphere, they seem to, like, think that their perception is this ultimate, like, amalgamation of human knowledge, and that there is no subjectivity, and that can't be breached, right? Especially in the world of politics. Like me, I'm not a conservative, but I understand why someone could see the value of conserving institutions or conserving social structures to an extent, because I mean that's how cultures really become solidified. I mean, like everything we know about, say, the old tribes in the Middle East, like the people that came before anybody really, like even the Greeks, but these nomadic peoples, everything we know about them is through culture, like the solidification of culture, where there is not malleability. We can say with some certainty that we have an observable truth, something we can say hold to be true. Like Christianity in Europe is a perfect example. It's one of those things where, like, you cannot deny that Christianity was extremely prevalent in Europe, and that there were interworkings within Christianity, like the Protestant Reformation and the Counter Reformation, that really shaped how the various cultures in Europe came to be, or that they had an effect on language, or they had an effect on popular culture or popular sentiments, right? But again, you can't say Protestantism or Catholicism, because it's not true for everybody, right? Christianity is one of those broader concepts within the world of religion that you can apply that to, but once you start getting into the nitty gritty, it gets really hard to apply a niche to a wide group, right? And that's what the purpose of language is for, in my opinion. Like, the purpose of language is to make sense. Of course, it's primarily to communicate ideas, right? But technical vocabulary, like, I don't think there's like a Horn scale in English for this idea of idioma versus lengua versus lenguaje, but langage in French is like the language you use, right, to describe something. The technical vocabulary we use, I think that exists so we can really solidify what things mean, and that to me is extremely important. Like, I think collocation is extremely important, and solidifying meanings and definitions is extraordinarily important. So why am I here? So I was watching a video on TikTok. I keep talking. I've talked about this a lot on my channel. I've talked about this a lot on my channel, where people have really abandoned a sense of humility, and I wish we would return to humility as a broader concept. I wish we would be a more humble society. I think everything is subjective to the extent, like, when you get into academia, or like someone is described as an expert because other experts said they were an expert, and that sort of thing. The facilitation of those sorts of roles in society as professors or teachers, I think the facilitation of these things is, bound to happen, and it needs to happen in order for the transmission and growth, acclamation of knowledge, progress as well. I think those things need to exist, but I'll just read the post out here. It says, grown men, after realizing they are sentient and discovering the most basic philosophies little girls used to discuss at sleepovers. Let's take a look at the comments here. Actually, I'll say a little thing about the post. It's like, why are we doing this gender war shit? Like, what is this? I've never understood this. Like, when I was a kid, I used to engage because it's only natural to be like, that's how racism starts, right? People get these ideas in their head that, like, oh my god, everyone is so different. Everyone, like, our differences, we need to separate each other by differences. When, like, it's not the case at all. From the naturalist perspective, like I said, if you perpetuate differences, let me give another foreword here. The way I talk in my videos, the language I use, the vocabulary I use, I am an English major. I very much admire, I adore words, I adore the application, the utility of words, but I hope I don't come off as like this bombastic, like trying to overtly inflate the language I use and the syntax I use. I hope that never comes across, and I would like to shut that down right before we get this started. I don't know where it comes from. Like people having a negative reaction to a certain way someone speaks, but I don't know. I've had this happen a lot in university where my people criticize me for, speaking a different, or like speaking in a certain way. You also have to remember, like, my English is being heavily influenced by a bunch of different languages all at once. So there's that, but I hope not to come off as condescending ever in my videos. I think knowledge and a love of words should be true of all people. I think it should be greatly embraced. Yeah, but I hope I'm not coming off as, like, condescending, anything like that, ingratiating. I hope I don't come off as any of those things in my videos, because like I said, I like to practice the art of humility. I understand that words are a strong suit of mine, but words are the strong suit of millions of people. That's why we have people who are technical writers. That's why we have propagandists. That's why we have people who write open letters, open formal letters. Like, we are a society of syntax and maths, right? And I'm in the syntax category. I like maths, but I mean, I fit into the first category, where I really adore and admire the application of words. Furthermore, like I was saying, what was I saying before that? I think I was talking about the manufactured, like, oh yeah, from the naturalist perspective, it is only good for the most part to diversify, like, the pool of knowledge that you're, like, pulling from, or like the pool of experiences. Like, diversity is a strength, and one of the extreme right-wing talking points is saying that it's like a Jewish myth to be pro-diversity. And I don't know if Judaism promotes a variety of diverse individuals or diverse experiences. I don't care. I don't know enough about Judaism, nor do I care. I think it's ultimately true. I keep like pausing to get my thoughts in order, and then I like lose my train of thought. Anyway, yeah, no, I think that diversity is extremely important, and just perpetuating these like wars, these like culture wars and gender wars and all these things. It's really stupid, right? And it's not stupid as in it's like a dumb, unnatural thing to do. I think it's really natural to be xenophobic in a lot of ways, but I think it's I think it's a tool people use to feel better about themselves, and this goes back to like that humility thing, where you know people, if they would be humble and stay in their lane, like I feel like it would be a really it would come naturally. It would be like a brainless decision to just be apprehensive, right? And here we go. Here we have the comments here. Samantha talking to Sarah about categorical imperatives and when digression is needed when choosing between different categorical imperatives at the age of 5. Categorical imperatives. Sure, this is some technical term I'm not understanding, but looking at the what the words mean, categorical imperatives, like the distinction of putting people in boxes. I would assume something like that. Creating differences when you need to. I think yeah, I think this is kind of hits the nail like directly on the head, or it's you're not talking about advanced philosophy when you're a kid, because you can't process it. You cannot process. And that's the thing about the terms like kid genius. Like, it's not possible to conceptualize in a lot of ways broad concepts and also apply them in a meaningful way. Like, kids that get really good at math, they get really good at solving equations and things, they get really good at pattern recognition, but it's only the few that become good at writing proofs and establishing, a firm basis in the fundamentals and expanding upon those within mathematics, right? I saw a bloke, online who was making all of the world flags in Microsoft PowerPoint, and he was doing some really advanced math shit, and he was writing these really advanced, not algorithms, these really advanced equations or expressions. And overall I thought it was really interesting, but for me, I get the whole computational, or like the combination of terms, finding like terms, and then simplification, and all the rules, distributive properties, all the properties, things like that. I know how to do all that stuff, but I could have never conceptualized creating these expressions as they describe something real, right? And that's what, like, philosophy is the same way. Like, if you get an idea, like, I know what nihilism, right? I know what nihilism is, but I could not create an expression of. I could not create a unique understanding or definition of nihilism, because I'm not a philosopher. I've not been trained to think like that, and I don't naturally think like that, right? Nihilism to me is like the standard tried trope where it's like you think everything is meaningless. Obviously, I know it's more than that, right? But to me, that's the sign of the signifier of nihilism there, right? Whereas if you give me a text and you ask me to read it, I can break it down. I can dissect what all the words mean, because I've been trained to think like that. So for some person out here to be claiming that little girls used to discuss philosophy at sleepovers, no, like, bullshit, right? I'm thinking about, yes, Sally, do you want to play dolls? No, Amanda, I'm thinking about late stage capitalism and the effects it will have on our future and the environment. And even like these things are extremely surface level too. Like these people have the straw that breaks the plane of going under the first level, and they get completely complacent with it, right? Right. If you listen to my music, right, you hear a variety of different types of guitar playing, right? I use fingerstyle, I use electric guitar playing, I use uh, polymeter, I use yeah, I experiment with a lot of sonic tones. I experiment with a lot of different tunings, a lot of different chords, modes, keys, time signatures. I already mentioned polyrhythms, but yeah, I experiment with how a bass moves in concordance with melody, right? So harmony versus melody, and then of course I experiment with accidentals and wandering outside of 12 tone equal yeah, 12 tone equal temperament, and all of these things are below that like surface in a very in a variety of different stages below that initial straw that breaks the plane. But I still have so much work to do, and people just are so complacent with this. Like, this is such a fucking nose pointing to the sky post. It's like, oh, you're getting into stoicism. Stoicism is whatever, right? I like the idea of stoicism, not the popular conception of stoicism where you have to repress everything, but having that sort of discipline to handle, to channel your emotions in ways that they correlate to circumstances in out of your control. And I mean, I think discipline is an extremely important thing. I don't have a I don't have a formal methodology for disciplining myself, but I try to, right? Not formally. I try to have discipline within myself, and these sorts of things. And I think discipline in general has gone down the wayside, right? And there are people that are extremely smart, way smarter than myself, like these people that have extreme displays of intelligence and understanding, and they're experts at what they do, right? Like that guy that made all those flags in Microsoft PowerPoint. Um, like he showed extreme discipline because he explained things in a way that made sense. He did the music for his video. He printed all of these flags out. He was earnest about his pronunciation of the different countries because he's Korean, and like just this extreme classiness that I really really admire, right? And this sort of classiness is lost online. Like I watched Iron Lung yesterday. I enjoyed it, right? It's definitely one of those movies where I sat down and I was like, okay, make another movie. You can definitely expand on your talents, right? And I'm extremely happy for Markiplier for achieving this, right? I think it was really interesting, but it was definitely like Lynchian, what the fuck, right? That being said, yeah, I saw someone online being like, "Oh, this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen," and that's it. No further explanation, and just this fucking nose to the air, high perception of your own intellectual understanding and your own perceptions. It's gross. And the thing with our society is, I don't know whether to call this a good thing or a bad thing, even in my own perception, because I feel like confidence and bravado are two different things. Leggett Ricka says something like that in Skyrim, where is that confidence or bravado? When I come here speaking to you, I come speaking with a sense of confidence, right? I know that I am addressing a certain amount of people. I know I'm addressing the world because the accessibility of YouTube is extremely high. I come accepting the fact that I have said wrong things in the past. I probably have said things that are wrong here. I will say wrong things in the future, but the way I conduct myself, because I know I have that, I have that forward and I have that repertoire with creating content. I come with a sort of confidence, but I would never go so far as to speak out of line about something I could not explain adequately. Um, Say for example, like if I wanted to explain why evolution is not a religion, or why evolution isn't a an explanation for where species came from. I could explain it. I could explain it really poorly, but I don't think I'm nearly as qualified as someone like a scientist to speak on these things. And it would be different if I was like trying to explain ideas I had about something, but explaining something as objective fact, right? I would never step out of line. Whereas all these podcast bros, and I'm generalizing here, there are a lot of great podcasts out there. Not mine. Mine is just jabberwocky nonsense. But there are people who do these podcasts where they talk about people, and they talk about how individuals interact, and they talk about various things, and they're just so wrong, and they just go with it. Like, if I need to do research for a video, I'll do research for a video. Like that video I made about like things I wished I would have known when I was like starting to learn French is all objective in my experience. Those are things I wish I would have known, right? All the ukaduk, the various sounds, the liaison, the conjugations, the subjunctive, all that stuff. I wish I would have known that going into, and I wish I would have known that not all the Romance languages utilize the subjunctive in the same way, but that's neither here nor there, right? At the crux of the point of that was to convey information that is ultimately true, because I knew what I was talking about. But people say anything here. This girl that made this post, right, and all these comments here, right, talking about philosophy, and all the men responding being like, "Oh, actually I know about philosophy." And that interview that the one woman had, where the one guy was like, "Oh, I just like all the philosophers," right? Yeah, what are their names? And he couldn't conjure a response. It's like, that's how people are on the internet, and that's how people are in generally. That's why I don't like talk about cars outside of aesthetics. It's like, yeah, I like a 1972 Camaro. I like a 1973 Camaro. I like the 1978 Camaro, right? And the 2009 2007 one I like, but I don't like as much. That's completely aesthetics based. I don't know shit about these vehicles. I know that they're classified as sports cars, but that means nothing. That's an abstract concept. That's like that's like if I was like, "Oh, motor proteins, those are myelitic proteins." It's like, that's not really knowledge. That's just more words upon words upon words, right? That's why I don't really like. I wanted to be a doctor for a while, but I don't talk about like medicine on here, because there's so much to consider, and that's the application of knowledge. I think that's what med school does. Now, I've never been to med school, but I think that's what med school does. You compound information, and you ameliorate your understanding of what things are, how the body works, and how the body can be infiltrated, and the body's machinations for battling against what it deems as foreign, or in the, I get, would it be rheumatic? Is rheumatic the word? Well, in the case of rheumatics, where it's this perceived threat that isn't actually a threat, rheumatoid arthritis, for example. Right, and then I feel like it would be asserting that, and growing the confidence to have counsel. I would have loved to do that. I would love to be an expert in literally anything, right? Because I have tremendous respect for that. Like, the reason I like LeBron James so much is because he's an expert in watching how people think when it comes to actively playing the game of basketball. The man is super cerebral with his playing and playmaking that I really admire that. Michael Jordan was a hell of a scorer. He was a phenomenal, he was a phenomenal player. In my opinion, the second greatest player ever, right? But he's not that doctor thinking. He doesn't have that doctorate thinking that LeBron James has, in my opinion. What I love about Steph Curry is he's a doctor of the shot. He knows how to shoot. He can he can pinpoint so many shots and just blow people's minds with his sense of range, depth perception. That sort of doctorate thinking is something I really admire. The people on fucking TikTok, they don't give a shit about that. I watched a video today where a guy called The Art of Debating. I made a video about The Art of Debating. I never uploaded it because I just felt it was so pointless because I do admire someone that engages in rhetoric and tries to attempt to sway an opinion or tries to create room for maybe not complete change, but definitely get someone thinking. Like, I have so much respect for that, but in the same right, there are so many of these assholes online arguing blood sport. Like, it's the perfect word to use. I cannot believe I hadn't thought of it earlier. And oh damn, I can't remember his name, but yeah, he's a guy that talks about Christianity and indoctrination and things like that. But yeah, he used the word blood sport when it comes to debate. Planet Peterson is a guy I have extreme respect for. I don't know if I've talked about this before on the channel, but Planet Peterson is a guy that I have tremendous respect for. But I watch his debate videos for the knowledge and becoming acquainted with terminology and learning things. Not so much the intellectual value of the debates, because they don't exist. The intellectual value of this blood sport debating system is very little, because there's stuff that you can learn, but this is shared knowledge you can go find yourself. Like, when people talk about abortion and they're talking about various parts of the Constitution, or they're talking about a history of Supreme Court cases, that's all readily accessible information. You can go look at the ruling for Roe v. Wade right now, right? You can go look at the biological definition of life. You can look at the biological definition of things like parasites. You can look at symbiotics. You can look at alternation of generations. You can look at conception. You can look at zinc sparks. You can go look at all of these things, but it's not conducive to the debate environment. The debate environment is so haughty. It's so grandstanding. It's so frustrating, because the word blood sport is the perfect definition. It's, haha, look at how smart I am and look at how stupid you are. I hate that. Because what do? Sure, people need to be put in their place, but in what position am I to put people in their place? I'm not, I do not have the right to adjourn people. I do not have the right to judge people, right? I do not have the right to assert people, because I can be erroneous in my thinking as, they can be erroneous in their thinking. It might not be in the same topics, it might not be in the same volume, but it still happens, right? And even that, you could argue that that's sort of logical fallacy, right? Courtier's reply or something like that, where because I know something, because I know something, I have the right to assert someone else, right? That's, I feel like that is textbook Courtier's reply, so I don't really do that. I have my opinions. People can be wrong. I look to a guy like Lawrence Perrine that talks about the interpretation of a text, whatever you define a text as, right? you can look at Lawrence Perrine and see that he concurs that not every interpretation is equal, but in the same right, as long as someone's being intellectually honest, which that's its own subjective interpretation in its own right, so that's also hard to assert. But if someone's being intellectually honest and where they come from comes from a place of the heart and trying to understand and trying to make an earnest comprehension. Like these people that argue about politics from a place of religion, I don't think it's wrong because there is a call for a separation of church and state. I think they're wrong because that goes against the nub of politics, but they're trying. They're trying. It's not intellectually dishonest to attack politics from a place of religion when it comes from the self, right? My argument is that you need to detach the self from politics in order to create this communion, because the truth goes back to the naturalist sort of view where we are not the strongest or the fastest organisms, but we are the smartest, but smarts can only conglomerate together to create something bigger than society is bigger than any organism. Any history is bigger than any organism. It's bigger than any individual technology, because technology is the summation of this sort of, I don't know, collection, this conglomeration, right? So, yeah, I don't think that's intellectually dishonest, but I would never bash someone like that. Um, what what I see with the world and how it is here, and I see the people posting about, like, we used to talk about philosophy at sleepovers. What I see here is this intellectual dishonesty where it's like you don't want to admit that I don't even know where I would even begin to start. But I think it's this not wanting to admit that you think that you're better than people because you have this perception that you started thinking about things earlier. I could totally sit up on my high horse here and be like, "Oh, I know so much about culture and people because I got really interested in Swedish culture before the age of 10, certainly. I would even say I got interested in the culture of Sweden and Europe before the age of 8, right? I could totally say I used to draw flags for my grandparents when I was younger, right? How many kids are doing that shit? Very little. You know what I don't do? I don't pretend like that makes me better than anybody, because it doesn't. It doesn't take a fucking drop of intelligence. Well, hyperbolizing here. It does not take a drop of intellect to look at some fucking colors on a bandera and, replicate them. It doesn't take anything for me to look at a textbook and be like, "Oh yeah, well, World War II actually started in 1937 because Japan started invading China and that implicated, or it started in 1936 because the Spanish Civil War had a bunch of foreign participants." Like, those opinions are nothing. They're literally nothing opinions, and they're coming from me, right? Technically, I will be a trained historian, so those sorts of questions are important to ask, but the opinions of themselves are not important. And if I start hawking them to be true, then hawk to sorry. If I start hawking them as these intellectual truths and I start riding that high horse, that I'm nothing. Like, I'm just another selfish loser that thinks they are higher than people in society that we all make up. Idiots and geniuses make up the population, right? You can see it as that, black or white. Or you can see it as we're all geniuses conglomerating, and there's also the view that we're all idiots trying to make society work, but that doesn't, none of those values, none of those thoughts, none of those perceptions change from the fact that we are all people and we all have to get along. We all have to create this society for the betterment of progress, right? And like my naturalist worldview has a lot of niche nuances. It's got a lot of begristlement because it's a view I've had for a long time, and so it's changed over time. It's like my own socialism, right? It's like my own, like, kind of like this mix, this mezcla of Marxism, of socialism, of, looking at the free market as this thing of like, okay, the free market, the free global market actually isn't that bad of a thing because it's global, right? It's something that everyone's privy to. Everyone knows about the global market, whether they know it by that name or whether they know how it works. We all know that we have to manufacture goods. We all know that we have to have some. For right now, it's entirely fiscal, but we have to have something that contributes to this market, whether it be through product, whether it be through financials, whether it be through some humanitarian effort, whether it be through whatever, right? We all know this thing exists, this broad abstract concept. So we live within it. Now, where the Marxist in me comes out is it's like I don't think the global market is a market of fiscalness. I don't think it's this market of things existing in a fiscal perspective. I think that's a bias that is imposed on us because we do pay for everything. Taxes, 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 fucking taxes everywhere. I think work is so important. I think work is so much more valuable than the product because the product only means what to one person. There is a relationship that goes into every single product, even if it's one person making one thing for themselves, or it's this most simple, right? The most simple machine, right? Trying to alleviate things like the creation of the wheel, or the creation of the fulcrum, the creation of the wedge, right? These simple machines, as physics literally calls them, simple machines, but the labor that goes into them and their own unique relation to work. Before there was fiscal means, before there was that agrarian feudalism, right? Before there was that, there was work. It was, how do we alleviate work? How do we contribute to the betterment of humanity? And that's naturalist to me. So my Marxism and naturalism very much coincide with each other, but one is very heavily focused on economics, and then there's social programs because we have those capabilities and we have to ask those questions like, what do unions do? A lot of people interested in politics, in quotation marks, online are going to look at things like unions. And because we're so fucking hardwired to talk about things like gender identity and homosexuality and racial politics, we're not thinking about things that have applications for all people that would throw away all those other problems if things could be alleviated. The fear of homosexuality comes from people think that someday homosexuality is going to rule in such number. It's this deep-seated fear that spawns from the Victorian era, that people think homosexuality is going to overtake heterosexuality and we're going to stop reproducing, right? That's the fear, right? And if we enable another golden age, people are the problems will naturally go away because people are going to look at everything when things suck like they do right now, and they're going to nitpick and nitpick and nitpick until they get everything they want if they can attain that supremacy. When things are good, that acceptance it's just almost natural, right? The Civil Rights era, like the Civil Rights Act and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., rest his soul, rest in peace. Look at when that came in. I think the golden age of capitalism in the United States is the 1950s. So it's only natural progress is being made, right? We have all these images from the Anchwacky days, right? And every time new problems come along, if we can focus on the shit that matters, right? And not just talk about philosophy, but this sort of unitarian idea that we're all people and we all have specialties and we all have a place and we can all do something, then we can harbor and we can manifest that future that all of us want. And with racists, they only want it for a specific set of people, right? But they do want the same things. Everyone wants that comfort. Everyone wants that satisfaction. Everyone wants that carnal. Ooh, I don't know if that's a good word. Yeah, I'll use the word carnal. Everyone wants that carnal desire to hunt and reap the benefits of your hunts, and that's what working is, right? So I'm going to call that's entirely subjective, by the way, but I'm going to call that as I see it, right? So if everyone can reap the benefits of hunting and live these comfortable lives, where it's like that end of the horseshoe where the lion wants to be well fed, but he also wants to, or she, yeah, because the female lions do the hunting most part. The lioness wants to hunt, but she also wants to be well fed. She wants to be seen as the symbol of strength. She wants to be reliable within her pack. Everyone is like this. All of the Eutheria are like this, right? We are not crocodiles that waste away all day waiting for an antelope or a black buck or a barasinga or a batang to wander into our mouths to eat, right? And there's some strategy involved in that. Like, I'm not calling crocodiles stupid, but we're not diapsids, we're synapsids. But we're not like that, right? We are Boreoeutheria. We are Eutheria in general, and these are the things that we want. So when I see people inflate themselves with stupid shit that doesn't matter and try to play this nana nana boo boo, I'm better than you because I think that I know something you do. Do you know the full story? Like, one of the comments used the word Sonder, and oh god, some of this high vocabulary shit. The people that comment on videos like this that try to like prove their own knowledge or whatever, they fall victim to that where they try to be high sounding, and that's what people in debates do. They use high sounding language and they try to gish gallop and they try to be right about everything. I fucking hate that so much, right? I use a variety. I use not colorful. I use colorful vocabulary as in varied vocabulary, not foul vocabulary. But in my writing, I use a lot of terms. I use a lot of technical vocabulary. I use a lot of, you know, personalized sentence constructors. But that's because I'm trying to communicate in the most precise way. The people that do this external bullshit where they try to make themselves look good on a public forum, it's just to do that. It's not to make themselves look good. They don't care about the literary merit of what they say. They don't care about the intellectual merit of what they do. They care about, oh, how smart can I make myself look, right? It's like that guy that made that song. It's like, there you are in your golden light, something UV9, right? Someone commented like, oh, these lyrics are so intelligent. That's exactly what that fucking guy wants, right? That's what that guy wants. And for me, I guess there is a little bit of that, like, wanting perception in a way, like with foreign language, where it's like, I put a lot of effort into what I do. I want to be acknowledged, but not for any sort of personal gain. I want my efforts of learning to communicate with people through the way that they communicate. I want all those efforts to be acknowledged, right? And I want them to be acknowledged. I want them to be acknowledged positively because my intentions are positive, and the effort I put in is not any slouchful amount. It's not. Oh, I'm gonna go do Duolingo for 5 minutes a day, and then I think I can speak Italian. No, motherfucker, I've been speaking Italian for years. Like, I've been reading, I've been learning, I've been speaking, I've been interpreting the culture of Italy for fucking years, right? And these people, they almost certainly have these things in their lives that they care about. Like, I'm seeing it with psychology majors. Maybe they don't care about the textbook value, but they care about how people think, right? I knock on psychology majors a lot because there are a lot of them, and there are a lot of tropes that psychology majors can fall. It's kind of a personal in joke, right? But I commend those people that really value learning about how people think and learning about understanding cognition and how the state of mind interacts with the somatic, ecosystem. Like, that pit you get in your stomach when you're anxious. That's a direct link. That's active nervous system that gets you all nervous and shit. All that stuff is really interesting, and it's beyond my knowledge, right? So I instantly, right, have this extreme, not profound, I have this extreme um understanding in a way of the effort of learning, right? And like I said, I really do respect that. But these people that make these posts about um pop culture, they're like rap is like uh rap is like scissors, it never beats rock. You don't give a shit about music. You don't give a fuck about the creation of music, the culture of music, who listens. You don't care about the demographics. You don't care about the context. You don't care about the politics. You want to look cool. And the creation of things, as much as I admire any sort of creation, like, I'm working on a book project right now, but it's solely for the purpose of creating something, and that's fine, but I will not be following up the Galaxis project with any sort of campaign that calls it a great literary work, because that's fucking bullshit. I would never lie to anybody that wants to intake my content. Like my music. If you want to go listen to my music right now, I'm going to tell you right now, I make it for the purpose of making it. For getting shit out there. That's my coping mechanism. That's the thing I love. It's the labor of my love. And that means something. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that my music is brilliant or interesting or trying new shit. My music is my music. I write all my own songs, and I have my way of doing things, but it's nothing crazy. Like, if you're looking for shit that reinvents the wheel, go somewhere else. Go find something else. And I say that about my literature too. And calling it literature is super haughty, but I don't know. I was just speaking and I didn't think about the word I used. So it's not literature. My works, I guess, right? Because I did put work into it. That definition works. Word salad right there, but meaningful word salad. It all makes sense. It all comes together. But yeah, these people that, like, going back to what I was originally saying, these people that go into creating things, these people that post fucking 5 lines of poetry, these that post 5 lines of free verse poetry, that don't give a shit about poetry, that don't know anything about meter or poetic license or things like that. It's one thing if it's a 14-year-old girl struggling with suicidal thoughts and she needs to get something out there. I can put a little leeway in that. I can forgive that. I can find beauty in that, because if something comes from the heart, I understand that. But these people making volumetric assertions, these volumetric assertions, and being prigs. I try so hard not to be a prig, right? In my normal conversation, in a forum like this, you're going to be a prig, right? I'm sharing my opinions that nobody asked for. Yeah, right. I'm licensed to create that because I think, therefore I can, and I am a person that would rather do it while I'm alive and say, wow, that was stupid, or I shouldn't have done that, than wish I would have and never done it. But I try not to be a prig in public forums that become unavoidable. When you subject people to your opinions all the time, and your opinions are the end all be all, which I absolutely avoid at all costs. My opinions are not the end all be all. If you think Horse Jumper of Love's first album sucks, then so be it. I'm not happy with that opinion. I don't think it's right. but it's not the only way, right? A prig is one of my professors said he read something that it's like a prig is someone that makes their opinions about everything known all the time. And is I do kind of agree with that. I think we're all asserting our own opinions because that's perception. And perception is opinion in of itself. But I think largely the nub, I think I understand the nub of the assertion there, right? The definition. I think it's a very broad spanning definition, but I think that at the very nub, I think I agree, and that's what these people are being. These people are being prigs, right? And of course, I'm being a prig and saying that's my opinion, right? But these people that have no regard for the authenticity or any sort of understanding or the application of semantics, not understanding what they put into something, um, or not understanding what they put into something, not understanding the the value of what they're doing. Like anybody that is engaged in some sort of long-term investment into something. My YouTube channel is one of my examples where I have put time and effort into creating videos and trying to, I don't know, make sense of the world and do it in a way that people can do it with me while not being being beseeched to do so. I think, yeah, does that make me a prig? But I think it gives me this platform to where I understand like why other people do this, and I understand the effort that goes into creating something better. I understand, why people create videos, right? Of course it's going to vary by person, but I mean, here I am, right? I've been making videos for a long time, and I just can't for the life of me understand why people act the way they do in certain contexts. Markiplier fucking held his words, and I commend that so much for going out making a video instead of having it be lip service, and he created it about something interesting, and he put it all together, and I don't know. I feel like that's being lost on people. But yeah, this video turned into another thing where I talk about authenticity of people. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to put it out there that it's like my channel's not a philosophy channel at all, and I'm not a philosopher. Like, I understand the philosophies of certain things. Like, I understand the philosophies of literature interpretation because I've been surrounded in it for so goddamn long that, of course, I know the difference between new criticism and reader response and feminism and Marxism in terms of literature interpretation. But just philosophy in general, it's not something I talk about, and it's not something I'm going to make a habit of talking about. But just to see these people online try to be so, just to have this response, I guess, and feel like they need to make their personal subjective superiority complexes in a multitude of realms, just it it makes me cringe. Like it repulses me, and it eludes me because I don't act like that. And not because I am better than anybody or because I think it makes you an objectively worse person, but going back to the, like, not even just the naturalism thing, but going back to that, like, just studying how people interact with the world around them. I don't see how it helps anybody to behave like that, or I don't see how it uplifts your own circumstances or is for the greater good to tear someone else down for no reason, right? In our species, to criticize someone when they have fallen out of line, like when someone makes a mistake and we go after them and we're like, hey, we're going to hold you accountable, it's because this person has an influence and can cause people to act in a way that is inauspicious to a good environment. We hold these people accountable. That kind of tearing someone down is necessary to a sort of extent. I think we do it a little too harshly now. I think if someone makes a mistake, that they should be welcomed back into society and not met with begrudgment, because we're not saints, right? We're not saints. We don't have this sense of perfection. We live once, and if we have an idea or we're trying to do something for our benefit and it ends up, scolding multiple people or falling back and not being a beneficial thing, of course, there's some nuance with whatever you're talking about, like murder, obviously. But I think that it's human to make mistakes, and we need to accept that people make mistakes. But this tearing of others down just to do it, someone makes a puzzle and you decide to destroy it for no reason. Why? Right? Or someone makes a puzzle and they put a piece in the wrong place and you decide to tear their entire perception down, and you decide to tear their entire self-worth down for what? For what are you doing that? Right? If someone is speaking and they make a mistake and they use the wrong pronoun, or they use the wrong verb, or they use the wrong tense or whatever, like, you need to make fun of the entire way they speak. What good are you doing, right? And these videos, I'm trying to stay on topic here, right? And I never do a good job doing this, right? But, and these videos talking about, like, we used to discuss philosophy at sleepovers. It's just for the purpose of tearing an entire gender down. And I have no dog in the gender war. I was assigned male at birth, but I don't really fit in with either of the gender categories, so what do I have to benefit? I'm already at the detriment of either side, right? I'm already at the criticism of the other sides, because I'm not masculine enough, but I'm not feminine enough, and I'm not beautiful enough, and I'm not skinny enough, and I'm not, I'm not strong enough, I'm not tall enough, right? And all these things. I'm not whatever, right? So I have no dog in the fight. But I don't see this. I don't understand. I don't understand the rap is like scissors. I don't understand we used to discuss philosophy. I don't understand the blood sport that is, online debating. I don't understand getting into needless discussions in Instagram comments to try to prove something. Yeah, you know what? I'll give you a good example. So, this post says, the British Empire was the best thing to happen to the world, and if you disagree, you're brown. News to me, I'm brown, right? I love the United Kingdom. It's like one of my favorite countries in the world, right? I love England, I love Wales, I love Scotland, I love, the Isle of Man. I love Guernsey, Gibraltar, Ascension Island, St. Helena. I like the British Virgin Islands. What? You guys know that I know the United Kingdom, right? It should be evident at this point. So yeah, I'm brown, right? And this guy responds to the video, absolutely, I'm gonna do like a British accent here. Absolutely spot on. We invented the modern world, dragged millions out of abject poverty, and regrettably allowed our entire empire to be taken back overwhelmingly peacefully. And That's actually not true, but allowed our entire empire to be taken back overwhelmingly peacefully. Is this like some great replacement bullshit? Whatever, right? He's got a Nordic rune in his profile picture. Certainly some Thule imagery here. This is some Agarthan bullshit, right? But I responded and I said, it depends on the country. Please no, that's actually not where I'm looking. Hold on. Here we go. You put non-white countries into extreme poverty and left their industries in ruin. This is objectively true. Look at the agrarian designation of India, right? And the entire region, too. Like, pretty much all of India was designated as a raw goods manufacturing area, whereas a country like Canada and Australia and New Zealand were overwhelmingly white countries, but I mean they were still utilized to the benefit of the crownland. Like the Commonwealth was extremely exploitative of these nations regardless, but less so than a nation like India. It's objectively true, right? And you can try to say that there were other reasons, but I mean, it obviously doesn't all come down to blackness, but I mean, it was the colonial policy to spread civilization through the guise of I don't know, through the guise of what the British Empire stood for, right? So that whiteness was inherently part of that, right? And it's fine to recognize that. I don't hate white people, and I don't hate the history of the British Empire, right? I don't hate the history of any country because history is just history. It's not something to be hated. I've hated things like I hate things like chattel slavery for duh, right? I hate things like extensive warfare. I hate things like the nuclear bomb that cause unsubjective suffering, needless suffering, these things that cause mass social panic, nuclear bomb, and these things that subject millions of people to suffering for no reason. But I'm not going to look at a country like Ghana or the United Kingdom or the Netherlands or Benin or Bhutan or Peru or Ecuador or any country. I'm not going to look at the history of these nations and be like, hey, I don't like that because that's stupid, right? I mourn for people like the people of South Sudan because they arise out of civil war and they still are dealing with a lot of corruption and dealing with a lot of internal stability problems. So I mourn for those people because they don't get to enjoy the spoils of sovereignty. And a nation like Haiti, who has been oppressed by their circumstances for hundreds of years at this point, I feel for them and I mourn for them, but I do not hate their history, right? History is too broad to be hated in entirety. Like, do I hate that saber-toothed tigers used to hunt humans in North America? Probably. Yeah. I don't hate saber-toothed tigers because history is more than that, right? So, there's that, right? Africa and India aren't the way they are today for no reason. India would be in much better condition if the colonists didn't force much of the land to be used for agrarian purposes. The crown also didn't invest in the betterment of their middle to upper classes. I'm talking about the British Raj here. The aristocracy of the British Raj wasn't really Indian. Like, a lot of it was colonial exploitation and things like that. And they weren't allowed to modernize through the industrial era. So once India got their independence, they were super far behind. And there's a lot of people that live in India. So there's a lot of struggle there. So it's a basic conceptualization that these people don't do so they can push these narratives of it having to do with their brownness. Like, it's backwards. It's pseudoscientific, pseudo-anthropologic racial thinking, and it doesn't hold up. It's not comprehensive. It's not consistent. It's just it's just it's incoherent. That's the best word. That's the word I was looking for. It's incoherent. It's inconsistent with itself. Right. So, yeah, it was incentivized to leave the Raj for England, and academia was severely underdeveloped. Look at Ramanujan, the guy that broke infinity or whatever the fucking movie's called. This guy that lived in India, right, and he created these proofs, right? Spoke Tamil. He lived in the British Raj, and he was encouraged to go to the mainland, right? He was the metropole. He was encouraged to go to London. Uh yeah, that's brain drain. That's domestic brain drain right there. It's like the reunification of Germany. There was a domestic brain drain from the east to the west because the west was a greater financial sector, right? And there was also the work drain where when the west and eastern portions of Germany reunited, the Soviet women in the military that were serving, they lost their jobs because it was the official policy of the Federal Republic of Germany to not allow women in the military service, right? So these things are all taken into consider. The reason I brought up Germany is because these things happen domestically, and I don't want people to get too caught up in the idea that these things only happen um in in relation to foreign lands. No, this absolutely does happen. Look at the Great Migration, right? A lot of black community ending up in not Harvard, in Harlem. Like the Harlem Renaissance was a real thing, and I'm sure a lot of Southern communities could have benefited from something like that in the South, but just not a good place to do it because of the hostilities in the area, right? So these things in consideration, I put that in a comment. That was my response. And this person just said, "Nice Jew history slop you're repeating there." And it got 40 likes, as opposed to my original got 5 likes. No point. Nothing, right? I was entirely honest in everything I said. I can verify literally everything I said, but just Jew history slop. I, like it just boggles my mind. It just throws me for such a loop. Like, wow, you got more likes on your Instagram comment because you said I was repeating Jew history slop. Can you prove anything, I said wrong, or can you? No, 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 you can't, because it's not what happened, right? And it wasn't even about me being right. It was, I wanted people to see, obviously, that it's not you don't have to conform with that idea because you're white. You can be honest and not hate yourself. Like, people think that the nub of critical race theory is that you need to hate who you are and where you come from. You don't need to do that. I believe very heavily in critical race theory because it causes you to be critical of your own culture and your own society. And that is conducive to progress. That is extremely conducive to progress. 40 acres and a mule. Who fucking got 40 acres and a mule? I don't know. Not the people that said, we're going to get 40 acres and a mule. United States government lied. These people were supposed to be compensated, and they weren't. The Japanese never got compensated for Japanese internment. It's fine to recognize those things, and they're objectively true, right? Depending on what you mean by that. Like, I think most people mean compensation as in, like some financial or, some sort of kickback for having to deal with something. Like, yeah, right. But you can apologize as many times as you want for something, but that doesn't account for anything. And I mean, that's true of things like Japanese internment. But I don't hate myself. I don't hate my country. I don't have negative thoughts about America. I have questionable opinions about some things, but and I question some things, but beyond that, like, I do not hate the country in whole, right? And you're allowed to do that, but yeah. So I will not ever partake in this blood sport if I do debate someone, I'll try to keep it respectful. I'll try to keep it honest, and yeah. I think it is the work of other people because I am not a trained expert. I do not have the right, and yeah. Furthermore, it's just the way things are, man. I think it's really hard to say definitively that you have some sort of esoteric knowledge or you know things and you clearly don't have anything like above a surface level knowledge or below a surface level knowledge of something, and you're just trying to be better than people. And yeah, so that's the video. Thank you for watching. I hope this is not a disaster, but who knows. See you guys around. Thank you for watching. I don't know when I'm going to make another video, but stay tuned.